So, another Olympics completed. Record medal haul to equal 2012, the London Olympics. What did you make of it, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, entertaining, I think, and it gripped me more than I thought it was going to be. I think because a lot of hype had been made about the fact that Japan weren't, or the Japanese people allegedly weren't that keen on the Olympics, and Japan was in the midst of another wave of COVID. I think I'd sort of expected it to be a bit of a downer or a bit of a non-event, but I'd have to admit it really gripped me, and I don't think I've spent as much time with little tears in the corner of my eyes pretending I got something in them for a long time, because I just get so swept up in the emotion of things. You know, when people have tried for something and they've succeeded in it, I find it very emotional. So yeah, I thought it was really good, really good.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the makeup of it, it's a kind of tough gig, isn't it? That you got it coming along every 4 years, and in this
Mm,
case, it's 5 years since we had an Olympics, and you're training, you're doing all the right stuff, but 5 years is a long time
mm,
to wait to actually test yourself
yeah,
against, am I, in proper competition, am I the best in the world? Can I justify getting a gold medal?
yeah,
And you see that these people are kind of, reaching this pinnacle, and in some cases it kind of doesn't work, and it ends up not being a great experience. But
mm,
yeah, I'm always surprised how many medals that we do get, because it's
yes.
almost as if everybody's pushing themselves just that extra inch, or just that extra bit, because it's so special. And
I think that is true. I do think people do go the extra mile, because of what it is. I mean, I went to a couple of events at 2012 in London, and the atmosphere was amazing.
mm,
And qualifying for men's gymnastics was just a superb spectacle. And then I went to see some of the fencing, because I had one of my ex-pupils was in the ladies Olympic GB fencing team, and that was because we were cheering her on, me and my coach. That was even more special. But the atmosphere of these things is electric, and I'm sure the athletes get an extra boost out of it. It must be quite an amazing feeling, I would imagine.
yeah, and the aspect of team as well. I know one of the Olympians said on at the closing ceremony something like, "Well, it was good once we got off the mark." I think it was the guy on the mountain biking who got us
Yeah.
off the mark with the first
Mm,
medal. It was almost as if the team breathed a sigh of relief. I mean, you've got to ask yourself, do they think they're not going to win any medals, so they're really
mm,
nervous? And then it seemed once they got the first one, there was then like a waterfall effect of, great, we're running, we're
mm.
off. Let's get on it, and let's add to that pile.
I suppose there's probably always that kind of element of doubt, where's the first one going to come from? And,
Yeah,
I mean, and once you do get that, like, I suppose you score the first goal or first score in
yeah,
any game,
yeah,
you relax a bit and you think, well, okay, let's get on with it. But no, I thought it was outstanding. And I mean, there was some really fantastic things, and there was also some quite, not tragic is too strong a word, but I really felt for some of the athletes, particularly some of the taekwondo players.
mm,
We had two, I think, in the competition, in the women's competition, who were ahead by 8 or 9 points, and with something like 20 seconds to go, and two kicks to the head later, they both lost by about 2 or 3
yeah,
points. And and I think also the one of the men who he was in the final, he was in charge with like 3 seconds to go, and he still
mm,
lost. And that must be terrible, having that kind of snatched away from you right at the last minute like that. It must be a real kick, I would imagine, in the teeth to well, probably quite literally with
yeah,
taekwondo. But
yeah,
to have that there must be a huge thing to have to get over. But then I suppose you can counter that with, I have won a silver medal,
yeah,
which is,
yeah.
means you're in the top three in the world, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think this time more so than ever, because I was still in corporate life when the last Olympics, but since then I've started my own coaching practice, and you almost like you're looking for the inspiration, and
Mm,
things strike you, things stand out, and the fact that, as you say, you can be a millisecond or a second away from a gold, and you get maybe bronze because of one wrong move,
mm,
and it really is managing the inches.
yes.
And I know we've talked before about the BMX, And you know, the BMX as a Olympic sport was berated, I know, in some parts. But you know, you look at our girl that won the gold there, and just, you know, in her first attempt, she tried that trick that she'd not kind of demonstrated before.
I don't think
in
anyone had
Olympic
demonstrated before, had they?
Yeah, and she kind of landed, and she came off. So the thing that really impressed me about that was she got straight back on. There was no kind of licking the wounds or feeling sorry for herself or trying to, you know, indulge in some sort of, you know, kind of math worries me. It was straight back on the bike. It was let's just finish this. Let's use the time, you know, usefully.
Yeah.
Let's go around. Let's just get my eye in. I've got another chance. And by the time she finished that 2 minutes or whatever it was, she had a big smile on her face. She was looking at her coach, and she'd almost like moved on from that mistake. And we all make mistakes, whatever you're doing in life, and you know, just the ability to move on. But certainly on that stage, that was really impressive. And then lo and behold, she does her second ride. If you remember there, the commentators had already written her off and said that the American girl would win. But our girl kind of did it again. She tried exactly the same move, and this time it came off. And if you looked at both recordings, you could not see the difference in where the back wheel landed.
It was a matter of inches, wasn't it?
Yeah, that made her stay on, but somehow she stayed on. But again, what really impressed me was the fact that I think the commentator picked it up afterwards, which was, you know, here what she's done. She could easily have guaranteed herself the bronze by doing a really safe second attempt. But no, she, as a commentator put it, she put all her chips in. And he said, if you're going for gold, in life, you've just got to put all your chips in. If you want something hard enough, you've got to put all your chips in and just risk everything and just go for it. And that's exactly what she did, and it came off.
Yeah.
And frankly, there was nowhere for the American girl to go after that because she'd been previously unchallenged.
And I think that was the thing, because you know, when you're in that position of being the number one and you get knocked off that pedestal, that can be a real difficult thing to deal with. Whereas if you've been number 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 and you've been trying to get there, that in some way that feels easier. But no, I thought that was incredible, really, that she had that she had the wherewithal, like you said, to just complete her round. She did a few more tricks. Because I noticed that in that event, a lot of them, as soon as they came off or made a mistake, they just stopped, and they sort of forget it. But she, you know, she kept her calm. I mean, Sir Clive Woodward's got an acronym, TCUP, think clearly under pressure, and I think she obviously did that. And to go back and try it again the next time and pull it off by perhaps maybe a centimetre further, you know, on the track was just. And I also loved her reaction when the score came up. You know, she was just over the moon. She didn't know what to do with herself. So no, that was very inspiring. I thought that was there was so many things you could learn from that. You know, keep calm. You know, put it behind you, clear your mind, and if you really want it hard enough, go and just do it, you know.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, I was reading over the weekend, a psychologist had suggested why so many of the teenagers were able to take such massive risks and in most cases pulled them off, and as if they had no fear. And they were saying about the way the brain develops, the front of the brain, which does all the reasoning, prefrontal cortex, I think it's called. You know, that doesn't develop fully till we're about 23, 24. So if you're kind of in your early teens, that hasn't really developed. And it's that assessment of risk, which is kind of immature in the literal sense. And she reckoned that was why they lacked that fear, because they just went for it. They just saw the risk and said, yeah, let's go for it, without any kind of logical reasoning about what might go wrong.
No, I think that's true. And I mean, I think when you're born, you are born without that fear of failure. You are born without that fear of ridicule. And it's unfortunately something we inherit as we get older. I mean, there's that lovely anecdote that Sir Ken Robinson does in his TED talk about education. You know, the little girl in the art class who's huddled around her drawing, and the teacher thinks, well, she's never normally this engaged. And she says to the little girl, what are you drawing? And she said, I'm drawing God. And the teacher says, well, no one knows what God looks like. She said, well, they will in a minute. You know, and I think that's a beautiful story. I love that story. And I will always love Sir Ken Robinson for putting it in his TED talk, because I think that's just a brilliant story about how kids don't have fear, and how we kind of get that it's layered upon us somehow as we get older, especially as we go through our teenage years. There's a lot of experiences in life that can be positive or negative, and we get to worry and we get to doubt ourselves, and
Yeah.
you know, it's a shame. Now,
Yeah.
you know, we allow ourselves to be kind of hidden away, I think, sometimes. But
Yeah, absolutely.
just
Absolutely.
to see that expressed in athletics, I think, and well, sport in general is just fantastic.
Yeah. And I think, you know, carrying on the theme of fear, I think no matter how confident they are as Olympians, I think something that Laura Muir said after she got the silver in the 1500 meters, she'd run the race of her life, and she's a lady who's had a lot of setbacks, and she was clearly delighted and exhausted in equal measure at the end of the race. But they said to her, kind of, how did it feel coming down the back straight when you were kind of pulling away from people behind you and kind of chase it? You knew you weren't going to get gold, but you were giving it everything to get the silver. And she said, well, it's fear. She said, and so what kind of fear? It's fear that you've given it absolutely everything on that home straight. You've put everything you've got, everything into that home straight. And the fear is that somebody's going to come up on the outside. So she said she was constantly kind of glancing over her shoulder, waiting for somebody to come up the outside. And clearly it didn't happen. And we could see that. But obviously when you're running the race, you can't see that. But it was interesting that, you know, you kind of give it everything, and if somebody came past, you'd have nothing left to give because you've given it absolutely everything.
Well, one of the old expressions is, don't leave anything on the pitch if you want something hard enough, and I think that's an example of it.
Yeah, and it's like your parents used to say, if you know, when they were picking you up after a failure, maybe an exam or a performance or something, they'd say, well, at least you tried your best. And it kind of sounds like a really weedy, empty kind of, you know, it's not very inspiring kind of thing to say, but I think in Laura Muir's case, you know, she shows us that if you really want something, you've got to give it absolutely everything, to the point where if something else happened and somebody else kind of attacked, you'd have nothing left to give, because then it's only then, you know, you've given everything.
Yeah, I mean, you saying, this is going to sound very surreal, but you saying that took me back to my old school summer holidays when BBC used to put on entertaining TV series for young people. And there was I think it was a Spanish, German, Israeli co-production called The Flashing Blade. I don't know if you've
I've heard the name. Yeah, I've heard
it used to be on every summer, and I never saw the end of it because it always finished after the school had started again. There was about 26 episodes, and BBC put it on over a 13-week holiday or whatever. But the lyrics to the theme tune have stayed with me to this day. As long as we have done our best, no one can do more, and life and love and happiness are well worth fighting for.
Fantastic.
So I think that might have been a formative experience in my life, but
yeah,
you know, sometimes that's all you can do, isn't it? It's all you can do is your best.